welcome to a first-hand exclusive access. So I have the brand new Lexus LBX. Lexus claims that even though this is a smaller car compared to, for example, the Lexus RX, this still delivers the Lexus experience. But don't forget that this car needs to be based on something, and it is actually based on the new Toyota Yaris Cross. But of course Lexus has done a lot of improvements. The size of this car is in the B segment, but they have lowered it quite a lot. So it's more in the height of a hatchback. And the main competitors, as Lexus has said, is the Audi Q2 and the Mini Cooper Countryman. If you broaden your view, you will have the Nissan Juke, the Ford Puma, and those types of cars. They have definitely done a very unique design language with this one. They've gone away a bit from that huge massive grille. Now it's a bit smaller, but they still have this, you know, it goes thinner on the top here. So you still have retained some of that Lexus classic design language. But I think it looks very, very on point with what I would want a Lexus to look like. The rear looks a bit more simple than the front, but you have this shape of the light bar. It's a 1.5 liter petrol 3-cylinder coupled with a electric motor and a battery, so it's a full hybrid, similar as in the Toyota Yaris. 136 horsepower, does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 9.2 seconds. They have talked a bit about fuel consumption. They haven't given official numbers, but they'll say that it will be under 5 liters per 100 kilometer. We talked about the size, we talked about the styling, and I'm going to talk about the rear luggage space. So it's 332 liters. And since the car is a bit lower, it does mean that you have a very big hump here, because the floor is very low as well. There's no extra, well, tire reparation kit maybe. But here you have a bit of an extra width, which is good if you have, let's say if you have some golf clubs or hockey clubs or fishing rods. 332 liters, not the biggest, maybe not the smallest, but you can fold down the rear seats in the 60-40 configuration, not the 20-40-40 configuration that I would personally like. And the door handles, they do not move, so you can see me pulling. There's actually a button behind here, so if I press it, then it opens up. Quite dark in here, and if you look around, feels quite nice, the materials. I mean, it is some sort of plastic up here, but it doesn't feel too cheap. A bit dark in here, but I'm 187 and I do fit in the rear. The backside of the driver's seat is very soft, which means that even though my knees are touching, it's not uncomfortable. It is a bit of a lump underneath my foot, but I do have some ample foot space. And most importantly, I have a lot of lower thigh support. Believe it or not, a lot of the interior and also some of the body panels are recycled or vegan. So very good to know that Lexus are taking their responsibility towards that aspect as well. Armrest here, and an important thing that I will talk about now is the door handle. So in regular door handles, you pull and then you push the door. Here you push and then you push. Very simple and quite logical. You push to push, right? I love this color as well. It's metallic bronze. I mean, really cool, especially with this two-tone black roof. This is the Lexus steering wheel, quite thick, and I love the diameter. Buttons still, which I also like. Let's see if we can power on the car as well. Let's cross our fingers. It's a pre-production car, so take what I say regarding the infotainment system and the digital gauge cluster with a grain of salt. Alright, so I'm sitting here and the bolstering on the sides here is not that big, but the bolstering here is quite, not aggressive, but there's a lot of bolstering on the side on my thighs. It's some sort of fake suede Alcantara, which makes this feel sporty, and I think it's trying to be more sporty than it needs to be in terms of the interior design, especially with this Alcantara looking material. A lot of darkness. It's pretty dark in here. I would like the upper part to maybe be a bit lighter. I would choose maybe a lighter color inside, but it does look quite nice. Very flowy, but also very straight. I mean, it's simplistic in its design, but also they have, you know, buttons for what is needed, for what is used the most, for the climate control, for opening the door, for lowering and raising the windows, controlling the digital gauge cluster. And I think the interior is one of the major selling points of the new LBX. Looks quite simplistic, but easily usable. I recognize this infotainment system in a lot of other Lexus models. Very quick at responding. Really like it. And you know, navigation, sound, couple your phone, settings, connected menu, and general settings. This car will have Apple CarPlay, wired and wireless, but not Android Auto wireless because of some Wi-Fi law restrictions. It will probably come in the future. Digital gauge cluster is 12.3 inches. The new infotainment screen is 9.8. You can see the body panel here doesn't really line up, and you can see the droops of the paint here. Doesn't look that good, and the panel's not lining up perfectly. Love the design of the rear view mirrors. Lines up quite nicely. Here it doesn't really line up. I might be nitpicking, but this is quite important. You can see here that the paint doesn't look that good. It's a pre-production car, but still quite important to see the quality, because a Lexus is all about, you know, quality, especially when you build them. A lot of quality inspection and keeping all of the tolerances correct. Yeah, you see here the fit and finish. This body doesn't really line up, and if you look up here, you see that the body here doesn't go as far out as this does. There's a bit of a gap here. Small details, and I hope that Lexus will be able to iron them out, because a Lexus product is supposed to be a Lexus product, because Lexus stands for something. The LBX is primarily aimed towards the European market, and I think that Lexus has done a fine job. But interesting to see the fuel consumption, the price, and how it drives, because a Lexus is also of course about how it drives. During the presentations they've talked a lot about how they've worked to make this the driving experience into the Lexus DNA, to reduce the noise, the vibrations, the harshness, while still getting some sort of driving enjoyment in a car that has 136 horsepower. But interesting to see how that combines, but can't wait to see how well this Lexus LBX will perform on the market. I think Lexus has done a lot of things right. Now it's time to see what the market says, because I think it's an open field, but also a very interesting field with the lower tier cars being very high quality. So it'll be super interesting to see how the new Lexus LBX will perform. And I hope you'll enjoy this first-hand experience. I mean, I have all this space to myself, the new Lexus LBX to myself, being able to touch everything. And if you have any questions to me, just write a comment. I'll try to answer it.